This is the Comedy Kiosk, podcast by Monday and Munoz. Please welcome Monday and Munoz.
Welcome to the Comedy Kiosk, a podcast in which we discuss news, opinions, and ideas about comedy. I'm David Munoz, and this is Igor Monday, and today we have a special guest, Oleg Denisov, and we're going to be discussing Igor and Oleg's adventures to Edinburgh Fringe Festival. Hey guys, how's it going?
Hello. Igor Monday here.
Hey, yeah.
Nice to see you both. I've been hanging out with Oleg for 15 days in a row, so a bit less excited to see him again. But nice to see you, David.
Hi. So, Oleg, say hi to the audience members yourself.
Hi. Yeah, excited to be on the podcast.
Oh, so he sounds it. Now, let's start with Igor. I just want to get your first impressions, because this was your first Edinburgh Fringe Festival.
Right, so it was the first one that I managed to attend. And after years and years of hearing about this festival and knowing people who went there, some for like full run, some to visit, some to do some spots and to just hang around and watch some shows, etc., I did have pretty high expectations, I can say,
Right.
in terms of what's going on and how it all looks and what is it supposed to be, what you are supposed to get out of it.
Uh-huh.
And I can say that the real experience was quite different. I don't know, is it maybe this year in particular? And I can talk about this a bit more later on, because he's been like 4 times already, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. But since I had nothing to compare it with, except, like secondhand stories and experience of other people, it was a little bit, on one hand, overwhelming. Like, you can't imagine how it really is until you get there. Like, the constant kind of exposure to shows, to flyers, to like schedules of venues, to people, like going from shows, like audience changing every hour, every room, like running kind of on the, like, it's a bit overwhelming, the whole thing. And on the other hand, it's a bit underwhelming, because maybe it was this year in particular, but I expected, like, I'll get there, I'll meet like 1 million people, I'll do like 100 spots across the city, I'll be running from like venue to venue, performing, doing like shows of people I know, doing this show that we have organized and put on, like I'll just kind of, I will leave my like hostel at, 10 in the morning and come back at midnight and been performing and watching shows like the whole time in between, when in reality I would kind of leave my hostel at 2 and come back at like 9, 10 in the evening if we aren't staying for some drinks, just to kind of hang out, because I haven't seen Oleg in like 6 months. So on one hand, the whole festival thing is a bit more than I expected, like, and it wasn't even like the busiest one in terms of the number of shows that were on and number of people that attended, but it's still like, when the whole city is a festival, and when you go to like one yard, one beer garden or something, and there is like 20 different venues, rooms for shows, and constantly something is starting, something is ending, someone is flyering, someone is, it's just, and then on the other hand, from some personal point of view, a bit disappointing, as I don't think that I kind of got what I thought I would be getting in terms of kind of like stage time and, constant engagement in something on the festival, like be it like watching the shows or doing some shows and spots, etc.
So it's kind of like a controlled chaos or something like that. Like the whole thing is very chaotic.
Except it's not controlled.
Oh, it's not controlled. It's just chaos. Just chaos.
Well, it's just, it is kind of controlled, but it's controlled in some places where people control it. Like, for example, our room, we were running a show at like 6:45 at the place called the City Cafe that has 3, it's a karaoke place usually. Yeah. So it's like 3 karaoke rooms downstairs in the basement. It's like a American style diner on the ground floor, and then they have 3 karaoke rooms in the basement, and starting from I think 10:30 up until midnight, there are shows there every hour. But all the shows were kind of running on time. People would like finish on time, clean the room. They were very nice to each other, mostly, respecting each other, etc. So I think it was very controlled. But in some other venues, on some shows that I went to just watch as an audience member, as a spectator, it wasn't like this. Like, one show would overstay in the room for like 5-10 minutes. Then the other one was pushed back. Then they had to rush. The people would kind of people leaving and people entering would like kind of elbow each other and push each other in a very narrow hallway. Then no one is checking tickets. Then someone is yelling, who had a ticket? I don't know. We already let the people, like, I don't know. It very much depends on how you run it. Is it like chaos, or is it controlled, or is it controlled chaos?
Right. And how's the camaraderie amongst the comedians for you? How did you find it? Or was there any camaraderie, or was it basically it's like you're out for your own, everyone's fighting over the same bone, and they'd be willing to like stab their mother in the back in order to like get an extra 5 minutes or a show or something?
Well, I think in general people are very nice to you, but you know, there is two kinds of people that I can say I've kind of, I don't know, detected. And one is they're nice to you because they're nice, because they're also comedians. They're also there for the same reason. They understand the kind of blood, sweat, and tears that goes into this whole process of applying, traveling, preparing the show, doing the shows, etc. And they're genuine kind of, you know, we're all in this together, you know, so it's like real camaraderie. And then on the other hand, there are people who are nice to you, but that's just to be nice. And they actually don't care about you, consider you like competition, or just, who the fuck is this? If I don't know you, I don't like you, you know, like I don't care for you, and I would never give you any spots, and I would never like chit chat to you just for the sake of it or whatever, you know, like I don't know you, you're not from my circuit or my circle of friends or whatever, you know, I'll be nice to you and polite to you just to be polite, so I'm not like that dick, but you know, it's still kind of fake, and deep down they're a dick. Deep down they're a dick, and sometimes on the very surface. But that's how I would, you know, let's say divide them into two categories. I don't know, Oleg maybe has a different kind of idea or understanding of was there more kind of camaraderie or was there more competition? Yeah.
So Oleg, your opinion?
I think, like, again, like if I compare it, for example, to the previous festivals, I kind of noticed a little bit more kind of atomization of people this year, a little bit, even though I would you would expect them to be actually kind of to have a more of a sense of community, just because they missed it a little bit, you know, the lockdown. But at the same time, everybody got a little bit more atomized, and I see a lot of people kind of. It looks like this year, like people even more than usual, more seriously cared about stuff like, you know, if they got a bad review or a good review, and you know, just kind of just genuine if there is a critic in the show, or you know, I think that everybody's kind of. I don't know what goes into it. Maybe it's also kind of they realize how, you know, that this is not a given, so maybe they kind of treat it more seriously career-wise than before. Than they before it was treated more like a big party a little bit, and you would kind of hang out with people more generally. This year I noticed a little bit of like a change in that side, and also like different types of people that Igor was talking about. Because there's people who are like genuinely nice, and I actually find a lot of those people, for example, in the Free Festival, because when we were at the Free Festival, and in general, there's a lot of people who are like really nice and like really helpful, and there are people who are nice just because they're polite, like they have to be polite, and then there are people who are like extremely annoying, like regardless of what they're trying to do. And we had quite
and by people you mean a person.
Okay, hang on.
Well, I mean a few people, yeah.
I mean, I will not name this person because
damn it,
no actual reason for it, but I will describe this person and describe the context in which I understood that this person is not a good kind of comrade or colleague or whatever, you know, like so basically in a room next to ours there was a show starting about 30 minutes after us, I think, approximately.
So you overlapped.
Kind of. I mean, how it worked is like we would start our show, and near the beginning of our show, her show would be kind of gathering audience. And then while our show would start, one of us, because we always changed, one of us hosted the show and one of us was in the lineup. Right. So the one that was outside just waiting for the show would kind of see her in the hallway and kind of getting ready for her show. And then usually when we are outside flyering or waiting for the show, she would already come to prepare for her show and the venue. So we would kind of be in this same common area a lot at the same time. And basically it's the kind of person that, you know, when people start coming, would really kind of smile and be nice and yes, please, welcome, welcome, welcome. And then person enters the room and she's like, oh my God, these fucking fuckers, I hate them. This one looks so retarded, probably won't laugh at any jokes. And this kind of shit, like super nice to audience, to their face, and then like shitting on them behind their back, or like saying, oh my God, I wish these idiots will leave a good bucket because I can't stand to do these jokes for them for nothing, and this kind of stuff. So when the show finishes, like, oh my God, they were horrible audience, but they left a really good bucket, and that's the only thing I'm here for. Like really not kind of respecting the art, the craft, whatever it is, the performance, but just there for the bucket apparently. I don't know if it's some kind of weird sense of humor, I don't know, but that was always. And then once I was kind of actually waiting on the terrace of this bar cafe for the show, and I was going through some jokes or whatever, and she shows up and she's like, hey, how are you? And I'm like, oh, I'm fine, just preparing for the show. And she's like, how has your bucket been recently? Because mine is pretty bad, and I don't know, like, I'm not really earning the money I expected to earn. And I was like, well, neither am I, but, you know, this is kind of like a hobby for me. I have a real kind of day job, actually, so I'm here on vacation, and I'm just, you know, I'm here to perform. And she was like, I'm sorry, I'm not writing your autobiography. I'm like, bitch, you asked, you know, like, what is this attitude, you know, like I've met, I don't know, like 50, 100 comics in 15 days, and every time you meet a comic on Fringe, you ask like, how's your show going, you know, like it's kind of a common thing, just out of interest, out of curiosity, out of politeness, whatever it is, but and how's your show going? It's not like, oh, I don't need to hear your life story, man, fuck off. And I was like, okay, whatever, and I stood up and left, like, you know, what is this behavior? So just like a toxic kind of horrible person in my opinion.
Okay, a couple of questions about this person there. One, do you know how long they've been performing for? Are they seasoned? Are they short term, like recent?
I don't know anything about her except that what does this matter?
Curiosity, young or older?
A bit older.
I think a bit older, I guess, but yeah, I don't know, like, what's her credits, what's her experience, who maybe she's super famous, like, back in her, like, country, on her market or whatever, and this is all beyond her to perform for 20 people and, I don't know, 50, 70, 100 pounds buckets, I don't know, but then if it is, why the fuck are you there? Go do the stadiums if you're so famous. Don't disrespect the audience that's coming there, wasting their own free time, paying whatever they can, like 5, 10 pounds, £1, nothing. It's a free Fringe anyways, you know? And then also like talking trash behind their backs. And they're also kind of being a dick to other comedians. So you're like shitting on your profession or whatever it is, shitting on your audience and shitting on your colleagues. Like, come on.
And did either of you catch her show?
No, of course not.
No,
I mean, it was at the same time.
Like,
I'm just wondering if there was like any opportunity at all, because maybe she was like really good or not, or something like that. But anyway, Oleg, your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, and it's just this particular situation is. Well, I'll tell I'm not going to name drop, but I'm going to. What is it like? If it's any better, race drop.
Okay.
But it's kind of just...
I don't even know what the hell that is. How do you race drop? Well, I don't even understand that.
Race drop is just I want to tell this story that because what I was dealing with when I was because I was kind of mostly kind of managing the show, like regarding if I was hosting or not, but you know, I would stand outside of the room when our show was going on. And I was in the corridor where all the other entrances to the other rooms are.
Right.
And so, like, for example, if some people are late, I would lead them in and, you know, and whatever. And just kind of answer questions to people who are going to other shows, just, you know, just because that's how it works. And then her audience started coming, usually would start coming to her room.
Right.
And because she was Asian, right? And like literally like 80% of the people coming to her show were Asian people.
Right.
And I was standing there with other comedians. And like, if there's like a couple like Asian person coming into the corridor, like, you know, because people there are visibly looking for shows because it's a confusing place.
Right.
And I just kind of went, like, you know, just pointed in the direction of the room, just straight ahead, like that one.
Ah, right.
and all the other comedians are like, "Is this racial profiling?"
Well, that's a good
yes,
point.
But it works.
That's the Eastern European answer right there. Yeah, but it works, so
wrong.
stuff it. Yeah.
I mean, I help the people without,
fair enough.
spending a lot of time doing it.
Okay.
I mean, it was also kind of obvious because, the shows were a bit like staggered between the start time of each show, so people wouldn't kind of make a chaos and like a like a mess in that narrow hallway. Right. So hers was the only show that was starting at that particular time. So if people are coming like 20-30 minutes after our show has started, that obviously means they're not here for us. And then there was another show that was starting 15 minutes after hers, so it would be too early to come for that one. Right. So but also, I mean, it's just the show was about like being Chinese. That's what the show was, and it obviously attracted this kind of audience. And if I did a show about, I don't know, being whatever Slavic or something, it would potentially attract a lot of Slavic people. There's nothing wrong with that.
Because I mean, I was doing 4 shows about being Russian, and like only very few Russian people turn up to that. Because like the only real reason Russians ever go abroad is to see less of other Russians. So it makes complete sense. And with the Asians, it's the other way around.
What were you ever tempted when these people came for her show, or you assume her show, to just go, yes, come to this one, and just point them towards your door? And just let them walk in 20 minutes late and say, stuff it? Because they're probably going to be too polite to want to walk out.
Okay.
Interesting tactic.
All right.
I'm just saying.
Well, I mean, this is arguably worse than what I did.
There was one person, there was a girl that came to our show, sat through the whole show, laughed, enjoyed, and then when leaving the room asked me, was this the Chinese show? And I'm like, do you think this was the Chinese show?
A Croatian and a Russian guy.
And there was like
white guys.
No, and there was I think a French girl. Yeah, there was a French girl and an American guy or something, and and I'm like, do you think it was? Because it wasn't. And she was like, but I have a ticket for that one, and I'm like, well, you went into the wrong room. What can I tell you?
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, so now, just to get a couple of things out. So I'm going to ask you some questions that you can maybe explain. So, Igor, what is a flyer? For our listener out there and listeners, what is a flyer? When you keep saying, we're a flyer ring, what is a flyer? What is flyering? What is that? For someone who has no idea what you're talking about.
I mean, I'm pretty sure there is no one listening to this podcast. I sure hope so. Who doesn't know what a flyer is? Okay. I know that you're an English teacher and you like to dissect the word. And now, children, tell me what's a flyer. But I'm pretty sure people know what a flyer is. But anyways, just to describe the context of Edinburgh, and then Oleg can actually talk about it more because he's been there way more times than I have. But
he's getting the free Fringe question.
Okay. So basically, each show has a flyer. It's either the comedian themselves or they're paying some student or some other performer or someone to stand on the street and hand out flyers for the show. It's kind of like the tiny version of the poster with just name of the show, picture, and location, etc. And they would just kind of hand you this flyer and be like, and they had really, really sometimes very generic and sometimes very good and interesting kind of pitches when giving you this flyer. Sometimes they would be like, oh, there's a show starting in 20 minutes, or an experienced comedian doing a show in 20 minutes, really good show in 20 minutes, something like this, something generic. Sometimes they would be a bit more creative. So they would say something like, you can charge your phone at the show, or you can take a nap in the back, or something like this.
Take a what
the
in the
show
back?
has air conditioning.
That's
it has air conditioning. There is no rain inside. You can take a nap in the back. So for the late shows, because the shows run up until 1 a.m. basically. So for the shows past 9-10 p.m., they would be like, you can take a nap in the back, or it's much warmer inside, or you can charge your phone, stuff like this. So one guy in our venue would be like, I'm not shit. I promised I'm not shit. Or what was his kind of, I'm way less racist than I sound, or something like this.
That's good.
Yeah, because
so you got to get inventive.
Yeah, I mean, there is literally, if you walk down the Royal Mile, which is one of the streets, or if you walk down one of the streets where there are many venues and shows, you'll be flyered, I don't know, 20 times in a row, 50 times in a row.
Yeah.
I don't know. So, and then one of them had like two guys, and first one would hand you the flyer, and he would be like, this flyer costs £1. And then the next one hands you the same flyer and goes, this one is for free, expecting you to take the second one because it's for free.
Right.
And this kind of, like games. But basically people would stand on the street or in the venue or walk around and try to constantly give you the flyer and kind of let you know that there is this show and remind you to go inside if you want to see this show. And it actually, like, I didn't expect it to work because it's just, I would walk around and pick up 20 of those flyers and then just throw them away at the end of the day. But that's how we got most of the audience, I guess. So it does work.
Okay, so now the question is, did you guys hire flyers? Did you have like someone working for you? Because I hear that's a thing. Or did you do it yourselves?
Well, basically, I'll take this one. Because, well,
that's what I said to the flyer.
I've been doing this for my fourth year. I actually quite enjoy flyering. I mean, to an extent, obviously, like really enjoy it, but like it's enjoyable when it works. Because like I worked out some strategies, and for example, I see like when I don't go down the street and see like flyers, I see definitely people who are like hired. It's usually like 15. Like this year, it's usually 15 quid an hour.
Ooh.
And usually it's like an hour before the show. Like this is like the best time to flyer, and like you start an hour before the show. Like people tried something else. People tried flyering like earlier. People tried flyering like next day morning or something like this. Like none of this works really. Like this is the only period that works. And kind of like there are flyers who do it really well and do it really badly, regardless of whether or not they're paid at all. First important stuff to know is, of course, that you as a comedian, if you're kind of putting any effort into it, if it's your show, then you're the best flyer, because like if you're kind of saying it's me on the poster, like people would kind of get interested in speaking to you,
personal touch,
and just kind of, and also of course it's very kind of important that a good flyer like is not the one who gives out a lot of flyers. Usually a good flyer is the one which gives out a lot less flyers, because they know which person like is not here for shows, if they're walking fast, if they're kind of clearly like a performer or works at the Fringe or something like this. There's a lot of those people. And in general, even people who are like, I see that these people are walking to the show, but they're walking to a specific show and they're not going to take my flyer. And if they're going to take my flyer, not going to work. So I kind of quite enjoy this kind of game, and and I also make like a little kind of, always to make a little joke out of it, like when I do the showcase, when I hosted the showcase, and I start like as a host and I just go like, give me a round of applause if I like personally gave you the flyer. And then like out of the whole room it's usually like not so many people, and there's just like some people clap, and I just go, well, an hour of life well spent, something like this.
Hey, and it personalizes it, because they're like, you're the one that gave it to me,
Yeah, and it's completely fine. At the Fringe, it's completely fine. I've seen people who are like really, really famous, who've been on TV many times. They kind of before the show, like there's nothing to do for them. And the last 20, 15 minutes, they just give out the flyers, and this is work. This works, and there's no shame in it. And I know people who really don't enjoy doing it. For example, I had a performer in my venue, and I was doing my solo show. She was all right and kind of like always friendly and normal, but like kind of didn't understand what Fringe actually involves, because if she didn't have any pre-sales, and on Free Fringe you kind of it was like only the first normal festival year when we even have pre-sales, right? Because usually before that it was just like walk in, right? And this year we had pre-sales, so technically Free Fringe kind of like this system was not really different to some of the other venues. So you had pre-sales, but you can turn up for free as well. So basically, if she didn't have any pre-sales, she didn't show up to do the show. And so kind of she didn't flyer, she didn't hire anybody, and it was weird. I usually hired one flyer myself and one other person, kind of take two strategic spots on the street,
right?
And
claim your turf.
That's like the best. Yeah, the best way. The best way.
Knife the opposition.
15 quid, for example, is basically three. If the flyer attracts three people, basically pay themselves, and they pay £5 each, then kind of it's already paid off. So it works.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, so now the next question is, of course, You guys have been talking about free fringe, of course. Now, some people might not be aware that there is a paid fringe and a free fringe. So, can one of you just quickly kind of explain it to the people what the difference between the Fringe Festival and the Free Fringe Festival is?
Yeah. So, well, basically, the difference is like it's like the Fringe Society is one thing. It's like every show which is registered on the main website is part of the Fringe Festival, right?
Right.
And then like there are all of the different promotions, organizations, which are kind of, most of them are paid venues, right? You pay some rent for venues, or you agree on some split on the tickets, like 70-30 or 50-50 or something like this. And kind of that's how it works. And then there's Free Fringe organization. Free Fringe basically appeared maybe 20 years ago or something. And the point of it was that you don't pay for the venue, but also you were not allowed to charge for tickets. Like you only ask for donation at the end. So that was the idea. And then two fractions appeared in this Free Fringe, and then they divided into two Free Fringes. So one of this is Laughing Horse Free Fringe, which is what we were doing. And then the other is PBH Free Fringe. So the difference is that Laughing Horse kind of insisted on a little quality control and a little bit of kind of optimizing the experience for everybody. So Laughing Horse, basically what they said is okay, you don't pay for the venue, but you do pay to register at the main Fringe website, which is about £300. So basically you pay this money, and then you pay something to be featured in our program, which is also small money, about 100 or something like this. And but the PBH Free Fringe, they didn't agree with that. They said Fringe is completely free, so they don't make it mandatory for anybody to register in the main program, and so they have their own little program, their own little app, and they do this. But also, the quality of venues, for example, which always existed at PBH. It was really bad, mostly. I mean, and Laughing Horse is kind of, I see it as the good kind of compromise. You don't actually pay anything. And of course, it's the venue is not necessarily as professional as the paid ones, but it's good enough to have a good show, to kind of be, to be a proper experience for everybody. And this year...
Sorry, the Laughing Horse, if I'm not mistaken, that's the one that appeared, it split from PBH, right?
Yeah, well, they split from each other.
I mean, that's kind of, it's an evolution of PBH, I guess. And that's why they kind of took some good things and then applied some other things. And now there is this, let's say, competition between PBH and Laughing Horse, and you cannot register shows with both. You can only do it with one, or you're going to be banned and whatever.
Yeah. And do you have street fights?
PBH.
Yeah. Do you have street fights? Is there clicking? Are people doing this clicking West Side Story street fights where they meet in an alleyway and they do they jazz fight sort of thing, dance fight? Yeah.
No.
That they joke fight.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Throw down some burn. Yeah.
No, they're actually much more serious than that. But this comes from the PBH side usually, because they kind of really kind of being very zealous about the Free Fringe, the idea that you should be able to actually not pay a single penny. But then, of course, there are still a lot of the expenses. You pay for the trip, you pay for the accommodation, which is the biggest expense.
Exactly. So I've heard.
And so it kind of doesn't really make sense. You kind of restrict yourself from being in the program. I mean, they don't ban, they don't say you can't be in the main program. But for example, some of the things that you can't have a show with PBH and with Laughing Horse, for example.
Right.
And actually, you can't have a show with PBH and with any other venue which offers a pay what you want system, which is a lot of other venues. Pay what you want system is you have pre-sales, but also if there are empty seats, then people can turn up for free and do a donation at the end. And there is a lot of such venues. And PBH are being really anal about this.
Right. And I do have a question about that pre-sale, because this is confusing me just a little bit. It is a free fringe, but you're saying there's pre-sale, so you can buy a ticket even though you haven't seen the show. So it could be absolute crap, and you're I just paid £5 for crap. Well, on the other hand, if you just go on your own, you can decide, this is pretty shit, but I still watch the show, so here's £1, bugger off. Is that correct? Am I assuming that this is the way it works? The pre-sales, you start to pay money? Or is pre-sales more like a reservation where you just show up?
The thing is, it's a reservation. It's a paid reservation. Basically, both Free Fringes, didn't have pre-sales before.
Right.
They only appeared at Laughing Horse last year. It was like the COVID Fringe,
Right.
where it was like they tried to minimize, actually exclude any exchange of cash.
Right.
So they even made it was mandatory for even the free shows
Ooh.
to be pre-sold, and then
Right.
Laughing Horse decided they will kind of retain this scheme. So basically, they're still free. You still don't pay for the venue, but also you get the benefit of people being able to like basically buy a ticket, and it's actually not even pay what you want to pay what you can system. For example, my show, the solo show, right?
Yeah.
And both of our shows actually, they had like a pay what you can scheme, so when you're buying ticket in advance, you've never seen the show, but you can buy it for different price. You can buy it for £5, 7.5, 10, and 12.5.
Right.
And actually, it might be surprising, but not everybody paid the lowest price. Not everybody paid £5. For example, I made calculations on my solo show. The average ticket of the pre-sale, the price of the pre-sold ticket was like about 7.5, something like this. Even though everybody could pay £5.
Yeah. All right.
And considering overall, considering overall attendance, nobody really needed to pay at all.
Okay.
So,
all right.
Well, I mean, I think the thing is, on the I don't know about Oleg's solo show, and it was like a much bigger room and a slot in the middle of the day. But for our like a compilation show, which was in a small room and a very good like time of the day, like kind of 6:45. So mostly we had it full or full-ish. Like only a few days kind of in the middle of the week and in the middle of the Fringe, we had something like 12, 15 people in a 40 people room. Mostly we had between 30 and 40, which was the capacity, maximum capacity. So that's why people didn't really pre-book that much, but we would still fill the room. But there were some shows that were kind of popular. For example, a couple of shows that we went to see, Josh Glantz is one of those, or one of our like fellow comedians that did our compilation as well, Ben Miller. He had a show in like a 20 people room, I think it was, 20, 25 people room. And it turned out to be very popular. And basically you couldn't get in without pre-booking.
Yeah.
So it meant that you can pay this minimum of £5, but you definitely have your seat. Because the system was first, they let in everyone who has a ticket, or who has a reservation or whatever, who has already donated in advance.
Yeah,
and then if there are any seats left, then all the walk-ins get to go in. So it was very risky for some shows if you don't pre-book it in advance.
Yeah.
And that's why there is a system that you can do those like minimum of £5, but you would then definitely have a seat on that show in that room for that particular day. Otherwise, you can just come and try your luck and maybe get sent back, and we have done this for our show as well, like especially Friday, Saturday, Sunday or something. We would have 10-15 more people come to the doors than there were seats, and we would say, sorry, it's full, it's packed, if you can, come back tomorrow. But if they did pre-book online, then they would have like priority over the people who are just walking in.
All right, cool. All right, so now I'd like to go back to you. Now your turn to explain, because we heard Igor's impressions. We heard his first impression for his first Fringe show. But this, you said before, this is your fourth time, right? So basically, things have evolved. And you were pre-COVID, post-COVID. So you've kind of seen different aspects, maybe a transition, like you said. You saw this kind of, the prepay system kind of coming in. So what is your impression of the evolution of Fringe? Is it getting better? Is it getting worse? Is it getting stagnant? Is it still fresh? What is your impression? And how have you managed it? Like, where did you start? Were you just doing a solo show straight from the beginning? Were you doing compilations like Igor just did for his first time? So please tell us a little bit about your experience for the last 4 shows that you've been to, your evolution.
All right. Well, basically, I started in 2017. It was, and I came with the solo show straight from the beginning, which was really stupid, but it kind of worked at the end because, like, I kind of wasn't really prepared for that. But also, I had like an 11 a.m. slot, so there was literally no pressure. Like people don't expect anything out of the slot anyway. So
they gave him 11 o'clock. He's got to be shit. Let's lower expectations.
Yeah. And it was also like a pay what you want sort of free sort of show. So but at the end, like I think it was the first year when I learned everything, because by the end the show was actually pretty good, much better than it started. And then also the 11 a.m. spot kind of allowed me to see a lot of stuff, a lot of other shows, which kind of really opened my eyes because like I never thought that live comedy performances, and I watched not just stand-up, but also like all sorts of stuff, physical comedy, clowning, kind of like different forms of stand-up which exist, kind of like the improvised ones, the completely crazy ones. So it was like, for me, it was just kind of completely kind of eye-opening experience of kind of like what the boundaries of comedy can be.
Yeah,
it was my first festival. Was just completely amazing in terms of kind of just the new experience, because I was coming not knowing anything. I just, I knew that you have to have some flyers. That's all. That's all I knew.
There's flyering, which apparently now is a verb, and I don't get it, but fuck it. Apparently I need to do this. But I also remember when you came back from that first show, we were still doing in, I think it was Prosto Cafe in the tiny little corner. You'd come back from the first one, and I remember like, you were different. Your comedy style had kind of changed. It's like you had learnt. Rather than just sticking with more your existential philosophical stuff, you had managed to like blend in quick little punchy bits. You managed to blend in some kind of crowd work and stuff like that. And I just found that, when you came back, like you had just jumped to another level. And I was like, holy shit. Like, and I remember I was there with Elena, my wife, well, I think girlfriend at that point. Yeah, definitely. And even she was like, shit, what happened to him? And I went, Edinburgh Fringe. And she was like, what? And I was like, he went to the Edinburgh Fringe. She goes, it obviously had an effect on him. And it was really good. It was really good to see. It was like, damn. So obviously, your first experience, unlike Igor's, was very optimistic and full of joy and happiness and experience.
Yeah, and also I see, like, I think after my first year and like later, I still maintain this kind of opinion, because my kind of, I think the most concise and kind of meaningful description of what Edinburgh Fringe is, and kind of why so many people come like to the Fringe, like when they don't need it career-wise, they don't need it like to kind of to get it better. They already have like tours, whatever. Like they still come, for 15, 20 years. Yeah, it's because like Edinburgh Fringe is sort of like a children's camp for adults. That's how I define it. So basically, because like sometimes adults, we need to be in a sort of like a controlled environment where there are a lot of rules which don't exist normally, and you have to live your life following those rules, and you kind of completely forget about the outside world. You only care about this contained environment, only what happens at the Fringe, and all this stuff with like flyering and attendance and reviews, even all this kind of going to other shows, seeing a lot of people that you haven't seen for a year often. And it's kind of it becomes like it's completely unique experience, and this is why people come back mostly, even if they don't need it, for their careers.
All right,
they just like to be there.
Okay, and how has it evolved since those first days for you? Then have things changed in your opinion? Obviously, with COVID and now with the current situation and things like how have things evolved for you? Okay. Sorry, Igor.
I would just add that. Maybe Oleg had this, I would say not maybe, but probably Oleg had this advantage that he was doing stand-up, and especially stand-up in English, for maybe a year or even less than that before he went to Fringe, right? Yeah. And that's why that big kind of development and upgrade, level up came from that, because, like you start and when they start, they're very, you are just very, I don't know how to, like, your idea of what stand-up is very narrow. You do it the way you want to do it. You kind of, because for me, it's I'm doing it for 8 years, and that only now I got to go to Fringe, and like there is still some use, some kind of experience to it that I got from it. So it was a chance for me to perform in front of mostly native English-speaking audiences every day for the first time in 8 years. It was a chance to perform for 67-year-old Scottish couples, which I've never had before in my life, and to see like how would they react to some wordplay, to some darker jokes, dirtier jokes, I don't know, jokes about the longer storytelling and whatever. So for me, it was mostly about that, to see, do my jokes work in a wider kind of global or at least like international context. But I can't say that I've learned something new, because I've been doing it for 10 years. I have actually collected and gathered some new ideas and twists on what I can try or what could maybe work for me as well, that I've seen others do. Yeah. But that's more from watching other shows than from actually performing. But that's also a part of it, of course. That's why you go to see others as well.
Yeah.
But from just performing, I think what happened to Oleg very early in his stand-up career is he performed for 25 days in a row, hour a day, his own show and his own jokes. And that really kind of launches you into that kind of right direction of how you can deal with your own material and how you can punch it up, incorporate some, as you mentioned, improv, crowd work, this and that. So I think that's the big difference. If I got to go 2016 or whatever was the first year when I applied and got accepted, I think maybe it would have a kind of big influence on my stand-up career and experience as well. This way, it was mostly just a way to run some jokes by different audience and also to see some more great acts and not so great acts as well.
Right. So, do you work on an international level, Igor? Can you perform to native speakers?
Well,
on a national level, not international. You've done international. This is national level.
I mean, we did actually attract, I would say, of all the shows I went to, maybe the most international audiences in terms of even the Chinese show that we mentioned attracted mostly the same kind of, Asian people, and some London-based comics attracted mostly English people, etc., etc. Our shows, at least the ones that I've hosted, and sometimes even during my performance, I would ask where is everyone from? And it would be something from 60-40
I think we can actually
40-60 in terms of
here,
just travelers, foreigners,
for the second part
internationals,
of this very
versus
topic,
locals. And by locals, I mean just British
a bit
people
more
from,
about
let's say, England, Scotland,
Oleg,
Wales, and Ireland. Okay, I would count there as well. So does it work? Yeah. I think some jokes sometimes didn't work, but that was due to maybe delivery, maybe some other factors, not because they are, not good for that audience. But most jokes that worked for me on kind of, continental Europe, they worked on in Britain as well, which is good because I think they have a very specific kind of humor there. And I think they kind of appreciate maybe different kind of structure and punchlines, etc. Plus, again, as native English speakers, they are far more kind of judgmental to, these kind of mistakes in syntax, in grammar. If you mispronounce something, they might not get it and so on. So in general, worked.
Cool. All right.
Yeah, so I think we can actually stop here and split this topic in two parts. So on the next part, on the second part, we will talk a bit more about how we would rate this year's Fringe, both objectively as a festival and subjectively as our experience of the festival, and just share a few more interesting stories, anecdotes, and things that happened. But thank you so much for listening to this episode. I've been Igor Monday, and with me were my co-host David Munoz and our very special guest Oleg Denisov. Thank you for listening. Subscribe to The Comedy Kiosk on all the social media platforms. And like this podcast if you're listening on any other platform, so we would be exposed to more amazing listeners as yourself. Thank you for listening, and goodbye.